You're listening to the UnderGunned Productions Podcast, indie and proud, taking home recording to a whole new level. All things cool, gear, beer, production tips and tricks, and a whole lot of other cool shit. Interviews with your favorite members of the UnderGunned team, and some surprise special guests. So sit back and enjoy the podcast.
Hello and good day, y'all. Jeremiah here, and I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the UnderGunned Productions Podcast. Today I have a special guest on the line from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, a longtime friend and mentor of mine, Phil Bennett, aka Metal Man in the metal community, and aka Turbo Killz in the remix world. Phil is a world-renowned film and TV composer and one hell of a killer guitar player. And I've been lucky enough to have him play on several of my tracks over the years, and we even got him to do the score for the UnderGunned Productions film Axeman Dark Force Massacre, which was a treat for us. And I'm super excited to have him on the line today for today's episode so we can get a bit of perspective into his insight on the music scene, writing, composing, mixing, mastering, you name it, anything music and video related. How's it going, Phil?
It's going great. Thank you for that, world-renowned.
No, for sure, man. You deserve it. I'm sure people have heard your music all around this world and back many times by now.
Nice, man. Well, that's very kind.
So what have you been working on lately, and what are your plans for the future? And fill us in on the Phil Bennett life.
Well, lately, I'm working on this little short Swedish film, little documentary. And I've also gotten into the remix world, hence the Turbo Killz. That's my remix name.
So you're bringing some of your heavy edge into that, or what kind of genre are we talking here?
Yeah, I'm definitely doing some dance music elements, bringing in some guitars and, you know, some of the old favorite stuff that we love to do. Mainly dance, a lot of 4 on the floor stuff. It's working with an artist who has a song at radio right now. And basically I'm just pitching my remix to them, and if all goes well, this is something I could make to the radio too. So that would be great. In the world of mixing, I recently started freelancing at an ad agency in Canada, and we can talk about that.
No, that's definitely something I want to dive into, is the whole mixing, because I know we've been both pushing to take our mixes to the next level over the last few years here, and it's good to hear you got some work in the mixing world and the remixing thing. I'll definitely want to go back and talk a little bit about that. But whatever you want to talk about first here, I'm game.
Nice. Well, you know, let's talk. What do you want to talk?
Let's talk about that Turbo Killz, man. That sounds kind of exciting.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, the times are changing, as they say, and I think it's important for a lot of us guys who are making a living as composers to sort of have an artist persona outside of just composing for film and TV. I think it's more attractive to producers and directors and possibly networks to know that their composer is doing something cool and relevant in modern music. So I really love 80s synthesizers, and I really love 80s production, but I also love heavy guitars, heavy music. And so I like the idea of fusing these two together with just a top line, which is just taking a vocal melody and basically reworking or rewriting a song around it. And it's a heck of a lot of fun. So I hope I'm successful in this endeavor.
Right on. So when you got this track from this artist, did they send you all their stems so you can manipulate them too, or are you just taking just the vocal?
Yeah, all the stems were there. I could have played around with them, but I look at it as a remix, as it's a rework. So I just take the vocal line, and I mean, I will learn the song so that I know it harmonically, but I will probably change it up harmonically as well. It could be radically different. It could be somewhat familiar. In this case, I sped the song up 30 BPM just to sort of get it to like a danceable 4 on the floor kind of and really sort of turn the song on its head.
But it's still recognizable to the original song. Say you were familiar with it, you'd hear that and go, "Oh, this is a cool remix." Right away, you'd get that.
Absolutely, because it's the same vocal and nothing changed in terms of pitch. I haven't altered the vocal, so that is totally recognizable. Even though I sped it up 30 BPM, it still sounds the same. Nothing is pitched up with the vocal. Yeah, and I've learned that a lot of these artists these days, their labels are releasing remix packages, and it's just something that they do. They'll get 4 or 5 different remix guys to do a version and release that with the single.
Right. Yeah, I did a track there. This is about 2-3 months ago. I've been mixing several tracks for this artist, Dallas Cross, and he asked for a chopped and screwed version. And I didn't know what he was meaning because this is like kind of a hip hop language or whatever. So I do a little research, and there's all these chopped and screwed versions of all these songs. And what they're doing there, I think with this one, I actually probably slowed it down close to 30 beats per minute. And then through some huge delays, pulled some of the main elements because I had all the stems. So I was able to work right from the core. You can see a lot of these kids on YouTube that are chopping, screwing tracks just with the mix itself without having the stems. So they have to be a little bit more creative when they're chopping it up and rearranging it and adding their effects. But I that was so fun, right? So it's kind of the same thing. You're going to have that source track, and then you can take it into your own direction and try to even make it better, and if you can, right?
That sounds so cool, and I've never heard of that. So you just brought me up to date. I definitely want to check that out.
Yeah, check it out. There's so many cool chopped and screwed songs on YouTube, man. Right away I'm thinking, I got to start chopping and screwing some of my own tracks, right?
You really do, Jer. Like, you know, I think that's where we're at in this world. Like, you got to kind of have your, you know, I hate the expression, but your hands in a few different pies. You know what I mean? Like, especially I see it that way for myself. And it's fun. And why not? You know what I mean? Like, you could be doing it. You should be doing it. So should I. You know what I mean? If we're good at it and we really enjoy it, we just got to do remixes of people's songs and get it out there, really.
No, it's a great way to experiment, too, because a lot of times you're doing a mix and there's a little bit of experimentation always, no matter what you're doing, but you still got to stick to the game plan, right? And you get to use a couple effects here and there, but when you're doing a remix and they want it different and tripped out and sped up and slowed down, then you can actually really experiment with some of these effects we don't get to pull out in all our mixes, right?
Totally. I'm really interested in that. That sounds so cool.
I have to check that out for sure, man. Chopped and screwed. Just a new way of saying remix, basically. But I noticed they're all usually slowed down's the theme to the chopped and screwed remixes.
Yeah. I'm really interested to hear that. And do you know, as far as you know, are they just manipulating the track, or are they manipulating the track and slowing it down 30 BPM, adding a bunch of effects, but also then writing parts around it, or that's not at all what they're doing?
I bet you certain people have done that. Mm-hmm. Like if you have access to the stems, it opens up a whole new world, right? And I know a lot of these artists are giving access to their stems to the public in some situations, right? So you can go and add whatever you want. And I know with the hip hop guys, a lot of the guys use samples, right? And different loops and sound effects. So when you hear some of these chopped and screwed mixes, you're going to hear that, like the boom, like cool bass drops, but in the part of the song where it wasn't there in the original version.
Right.
Stuff like
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah. I got you.
And a lot of slow down, like, and then speed up. Like, I always kind of knew what the Verify did on Pro Tools, but now I've learned to take that plug into a whole new level, man.
Well, it's not, you know what's happening, Jer, is there's all this software, and I use it too when I'm doing this stuff, is it's programmable filters. So you actually play the filters, like you play a key, like C sharp, D, and it's pre-programmed filters that you can move, and they do all types of things, like the verifier, speed up, or do washes or stuttering effects. So you can do it live, and that's how they're doing it.
So when you're watching the DJs up on stage too, they're using a little bit of that to get that live hands-on.
Absolutely. They're using like pre-programmed filters, and like they're doing it to the full mix. You know what I mean? So yeah. And that's what it is. And when you record it, you can quantize your MIDI, because that's how you trigger these filters. You could just filter anything, like it could just be the drums, it could just be the vocals, or the whole mix if you want, and you can just quantize your MIDI, so like all these effects open precisely in time, and that's how you get a lot of these effects. It's really cool.
So with this Turbo Killz here, what's your future attack plan?
Well, my plan is to make available my sort of electronic 80s production So it's available online, and build this brand or this persona of Turbo Killz. And like I said, I'm currently remixing this artist who I can't say, because at this juncture I'm not employed to do a remix. I'm pitching to do a remix of this song. But if they loved it, it would be really, really great. And it'd be really great if they played the remix at radio. So we'll see where that goes, I'm glad I have the opportunity to pitch on it.
Oh, right on. Just take her one song at a time.
Yeah.
Did you ever see yourself in a club in Toronto pumping these out live in front of a dance floor?
I've definitely thought about it because, again, with this, being a guitar player, growing up in the whole rock world, and we knew one another since we were, 12, right? So we loved all this 60s, 70s rock, space rock, but we loved blues, but big guitar based. So having lived in Toronto now for a number of years, I've gotten so deep into electronic music and dance music because I do love to write house music, and I don't know that I've shared a lot of it with you. I have totally thought about having backing tracks and like doing the looping guitar thing live with it, you know what I mean? Because I have one of these little looper pedals where you can put a number of loops in them. It's just this little, it's called a ditto. It's a great little thing to like beats in house music, and the track could be playing and I can loop different funk riffs and whatever. I've definitely thought of doing that.
That would definitely be an interesting way of taking the whole DJ thing to a whole nother level, right? And it looks like those DJs are having fun, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I know I got a real trip out of the track you sent me called Piss Jugs.
Oh yeah, Piss Jugs, yeah.
And that was like a good mix, whack of electronic things just hitting you left and right, and then the guitar playing, and that was just off the hook there. And it blended and flowed really well. So that was, when you sent me that, my mind was blown.
Wow, well, thanks, man. I had so much fun doing that. And, again, that was me purposefully trying to fuse, metal and shred style guitar with trap sensibilities, trap music, and like the beats, the sounds of that world, mixed with, again, with at certain parts of the song with acoustic drums. But it was a lot of fun. And I don't know that I got the mix quite right on it, but it is available. Maybe we can provide a link or something. It's on SoundCloud, so it shouldn't be too hard to find it.
Right on. How about we drop that track right now here on this podcast?
Yeah!
All right, I'm going to play a little Piss Jugs, and we'll be back with Phil in a minute here.
Welcome back to the UnderGunned Productions Podcast.
All right, so welcome back to the show. Still got Phil on the other line here, and he's going to talk a little bit about his recent mixing endeavors for this ad agency in downtown Toronto there. Yeah, so Phil, if you would like to share some information on this new gig and really want to hear about like what kind of console you're working on, the DAW you're using, your daily workflow, and as much insight as you can share with us would be great.
Yeah, so I'm mixing at this ad agency, and I've got the studio to myself. There is no console. It's all Pro Tools. And I'm mixing car commercials. So basically, I get the elements in. I'm not actually recording any voiceovers. It's all being done at another studio. And we do multiple ads. Sometimes we have days where we have to get 60 to 80 commercials out. So it's a lot of work. But it's fun. It's a lot of fun. And it's a great way to earn extra cash if you're a freelance mixer. The opportunity sort of came to me through a friend that I jam with, and I thought, this is great, and it really went so well. So it's a few days a week, and it made me realize, for anyone that might be listening who's mixing stuff at home or maybe has a Fiverr account or has these different other accounts, like there's other ways in the real world too to make a living mixing, getting some freelance work. Go to some ad agencies in your city, because they're always looking for guys like us.
It's great to know that there is, like, mixing music is fun, right? That's probably, I think, why a lot of us get into it. But once we hone our skills, it opens up the doors for these other mixing opportunities for sure. So with these mixes, are these radio ads or TV ads?
Yeah, they're both. They're radio ads and they're TV ads.
So you're mixing the sound, the voiceover, and then maybe sound effects into these too?
Yeah, so it'll be delivered to me as stems. Really, they're already pre-mixed. So the music's already pre-mixed, whoever got the gig, or if it's stock library music, whatever they're choosing to use. But I get the music, I'll get the sound effects, I'll get the source, so whatever dialogue they kept from that day, and then I'll get an announcer if there is one, or a voiceover. So usually like 5 to 6 stems. And it's been an interesting learning curve of mixing, for being responsible for the delivery specs, which I typically am not responsible for as a composer. Someone else is. So it's been interesting to learn some of this new broadcast software that you put on your main bus and these standards. And it's actually quite low, I guess because they just want more headroom now, because everything's been so crunched and so loud. Like when you watch your TV show and the commercial comes on and it's just blaring, right? I mean, this is an effort to try and control that. So it's good to see it. So that was an interesting learning thing. And yeah, I mean, once you get the hang of it, it's kind of like, you're working on a line doing something, but you get to do it in a cool little recording studio. And it's a lot of fun.
All right, that's actually kind of interesting, Phil, and it's great to hear that they're trying to get away from that max volume, because I know it's something I even struggle with in my mixes. Like, the loudness war is over, and like you said, it's just crushing and ruining audio by being too loud, and commercials have always been the worst of the worst when it comes to that. That was interesting to hear, and glad that you're picking up some work on the side and expanding your horizons. So I'd really like to dive into some of your composing history and some of the shows you've worked on in the past, and dive into how you tackle that end of the work and how you actually start your composing from the ground up. But first, let's just share a little your history with the folks. Some of these people listening might not know who you are or what you've worked on in the past.
Yeah, so I mean, I was fortunate enough to sort of find myself aligned with an opportunity to compose a film almost, I guess, 10 years ago. And I'd been making a living as a guitar player in different bands and doing session work. And when this opportunity came along, I just said that I could do it. And I had no idea what I was doing, but I just jumped off the cliff and learned how to do it on the job, which was really great. And since then, I've been very fortunate to work on all types of different television, network television here in Canada, dramas. I've done animation, a variety of work. And feel really fortunate to have done that So in terms of what would my first steps be in terms of scoring a scene?
Yeah, say you just had this scene sent to you and you got a blank canvas. Talk about like what tools you're going to use, what instruments, your whole mindset behind it.
Well, yeah, when that happens, if I'm just sent a scene or even like this short documentary that I've just started to work on, and it's only like 15 minutes, so I will watch all of it. If I'm just sent a scene from a TV show or a film to pitch on, I'd like to, hopefully there's a brief that comes with that to sort of give me an outline or a synopsis of what the whole story is about. Or if there's a Bible or a script to read, that would be great. But in this particular case, since I have the short film, I can watch it all, even though it's in Swiss. There is English subtitles. So I watch it, and I'm going to see what the whole story is about. And then often if there's temp music, I hear what the director and or producers have been temping with. So I go, okay, this is their intent, or are they just filling time here with, and they don't really know what to put here. So then I talk with the director, and we talk about things like style or tone, a palette, all these things, because that's ultimately our job as a composer, because you've done some composing work too. So we're there to serve that job. And that's what we do, right? We try to do our best to please the directors and producers and networks in some cases, but still sort of put our own stamp on it. So, for example, today I sat down, I've watched it. I got it yesterday. I watched it, and then I watched it again today. And then I started having ideas based on the notes I took from my conversation with the director. And I just sat down and started sketching with a piano or an instrument that sounded quite like a piano. And then I just sort of sketched the scene, find a tempo, what's working, I'm paying attention to what I'm doing. I'm like, am I on target here or am I way off here in terms of my notes, my tempo, my sound? And then I'll just have a rough sketch, and then I'll start adding things and trying to stay out of the way of dialogue, have melody sort of pop up when there's no speaking, these types of things.
Okay, I got a question regarding tempo, because I know sometimes a scene is going to be moving faster, slower, and if you're trying to fit a piece to a set tempo around that can sometimes be challenging. So how would you work around something like that, or decide on that initial tempo?
I mean, that's a great question. Often video editors are cutting to a song or something with a fairly steady BPM. And if we don't know that, then we don't know it. So I don't know that I think there's some directors who prefer that the composer is hitting every cut. It really depends on the sensibilities of that client, right? So they may want every cut being hit because that's what they got used to, and that's what the film editor used, whatever song he used to cut it to. So they've gotten used to that, and that's what they want. Others are open to things not hitting in time, and it's far more loose, and then just sort of where it magically syncs up every now and again is really cool, So tempo, I think, as a composer, you should try a few things. Just even simply watching it put the metronome on and try a few different things and watch where things line up and hit. At least, from that, if you start there, whatever notes or chords or sounds you start using, like you've already got your hits sort of set up.
Get in the ballpark, the right ballpark.
Yeah, yeah.
No, it makes sense. I know it's definitely been a challenge of mine on a few different things I've worked on. It's like, well, damn, it's so much easier if you have your music and then, like you said, it's edited to that cut. And one thing with these video editors, it blows my mind. I don't know, maybe someone has already done this with one of the newer video editors, but you think you'd be able to set the grid in a video editor to a BPM like we can with our DAWs. Like if someone hasn't done that, someone should do it, right?
Totally.
Anybody out there listening who has the knowledge and know-how, they're patent that one.
No doubt.
And then you could tempo map your whole movie out, right? And not that needs to be done, but...
I mean, I think it's not a bad idea. But I think as a composer, like if there's temp music, you're already hearing they were deliberate and purposeful with this temp music. You're hearing kind of what they want, and you're hearing the tone. And depending on them, it doesn't mean that if it's just a piano and a cello, it doesn't mean that they're not. If that's their temp music, it doesn't mean they're not open to a broader palette, introducing a guitar or a cymbal or whatever.
So could you offer any advice for young and up-and-coming composers who maybe want to get their feet wet in the business?
The first thing I think you should do is go to YouTube and download some video, or take the video, not illegally, I'm not saying this, just for experimental purposes. So you have scenes to score, because that's what we need as film and TV composers. When we're not working, we have to stay busy, or when you're on your journey to try and get work and get management, which is a whole other thing. But you want to start practicing scoring to picture. And that would be my first thing. That would be my advice. Yeah, so you take the video, score it. If you think you did something really, really cool, upload it to YouTube, and let people hear you.
Not just a good way to practice, yeah, no doubt. Same with mixing. I've always said the same thing. You just got to get in there and do it, right? And
absolutely. And you do a lot of it, that's for sure.
Anything in life, we just got to dig in, right? And
yeah.
Practice, learn. I'm sure there's some tutorials, but composing's kind of a mystery thing, right? Like there's a million mixing tutorials on YouTube, but if you go, how do I compose a score? There's a little bit of stuff out there, and a few guys got a little bit of insight, but there's not quite as much as you'd hope for, right? It's
I would sort of, and this is a recent analogy, I would liken it to a boxer, a guy who trains people. He was training me, actually, and I asked him about what he would do on the street, because he's an amateur boxer, so he's not doing it for a living. But I asked him what he would do on the street, and he was saying, I can teach you how to box, but I can't teach you how to fight. So it's kind of like composing. You can learn the tools to compose with, like know how to play piano, guitar, whatever, but depending on what's inside of you, that can't be taught.
Yeah, the final part of that journey comes from within, and you need to just kind of dive in and do it on your own for the most part, right? By practicing on random stuff and just getting your feet wet however you can. So another thing I'd like to touch on is pitching, because I know we've talked about this before, and once you're established, you still have to pitch your ass off at several different projects to get more work coming in. And sometimes you don't even hear nothing back, and that can be a little heart-wrenching, right? And so if you want to maybe talk a little bit about pitching, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's not for the weak-hearted, that's for sure. And because there's so much rejection, there's just a lot of rejection, and there could be so many reasons other than your music sucked, or your mix sucked, or whatever endeavor you're pursuing. Right, there's a lot more to not getting something, and it doesn't mean that there are times, we're not perfect for everything, right? It can't always be our turn, is the way I kind of look at it. So it is a psychological thing. Just speaking as a composer, when you pitch on something, you'll put 40 to 60 hours into your pitch, scoring scenes or writing audio demos, right? And reading scripts, writing audio demos. Scoring scenes that are given to us, and you really sort of get familiar with it, and you really hope you get it, and then you don't get it. And it's just stuff you got to deal with. So yeah, it can be a bit of a bummer when you don't get things, but eventually we all get our turn up at bat, and we get to swing a home run.
Yeah, I think too, from all that pitching you're honing your chops by doing that too, right? So it's again just another way of practicing. Because sometimes you'll find a lot of people now with all these new websites posting, looking for this, or looking for a cue for this, or looking for vocals for this, and then you can pitch your goods at them. And sometimes you get a thanks, but no thanks. Sometimes you don't hear nothing back. But if you didn't land it, you did get that practice, and you did go through the motions, which is important. So that's the one positive. But I know it can be heart-wrenching, and it can beat like all of us down, right? Like getting turned down left and right. But you also have to think there's so many people in the world aiming for the same things now. It's a competitive market no matter what end of the music biz we're dealing with. So it's dog eat dog world, man. You got to just keep slamming them out, and eventually you'll land that one. Just like over the winter there, I did I don't know how many voiceover things I pitched on, but I was on that big voiceover kick for a bit there, right? And I just pitched and pitched and pitched. And it's amazing how many jobs are actually out there available if you look that you can pitch at, right? And it's just like they're looking for the right voice for their vision, right? And it'd be the same thing with composing. They're looking for that right composer that matches and meshes, right? Because it's about the bigger picture, and sometimes you don't fit in with that picture properly, but if you keep trying, you'll find a match eventually. That's the way I see it.
I agree with that, and that would be some other advice that we could both dole out to young up and comers, is to just keep believing that what you do is good, and if you like it, other people are gonna like it, so you got to keep dreaming. It's not as lame as that sort of sounds, but you have to.
Yeah, no, keep the dream alive, like they say, which can be a challenge some days, right? But
it's a dang hard challenge, right? We know that as musicians, and anyone who's going to try and make a living as a mixer, an actor, a musician, a composer, a videographer, a video editor. I mean, like, we're all sort of like putting our necks on the line to pursue this thing that we love, right?
That's what it all boils back down to, those two, is his love for it, right? But it is like, say you want to take it to the next level of professionalism and be able to quit your day job, then it becomes a whole new ball game, which can be a little challenging, right? So don't quit your day jobs too soon there, kids.
Well, I mean, it's also where you live too. That's another factor.
Yeah, location's huge. Like, you got yourself set up in Toronto, and here I'm out in the middle of the mountains. You know what I mean? It's
and that's really amazing too. It's amazing what you've done for yourself. The clientele base you've established for yourself as a mixer alone is pretty amazing. You're just in the middle of the mountains in British Columbia. I think it's amazing, and I tell your story to other musicians I've met who said, I'm going back to school, or I'm learning, and they're 30 years old. They're not like young kids, and they're like, sort of had enough time on the road that they're tired of it, and they're learning their mixing chops and starting to get some work online. And I go, that is amazing. And I tell them about you and all the work you've done. I mean, shoot.
Yeah, we're lucky in today's world with our technology to be able to communicate with people everywhere, right? And when your service is computer-based, you can push things out a little bit further, but it still takes a lot of groundwork, right? And like I said, and I get a lot of pitching and a lot of getting shot down, but eventually you do start landing clientele and customers who come back to you, and you build these relationships and these business partnerships almost with some people, right? And it's about building trust too with your clients, right? Like, you do offer something and you're there for them and you're serving their song, then they will come back, right?
That's for sure. And I mean, a bunch of the mixes you've sent me, I was like, this is fantastic. Not only that you're working on these different genres of music, so many, a diverse mix of genres, but that they're sounding so great. They sounded great. And like, you were talking about practice, you're getting all these mixing jobs from bands are all over the world, and you're getting practice while you get paid. It's amazing.
All right, on. Thanks. No, it's like I said, it's been a slow process. We've been comparing mix notes probably for 8 years now, if not more. I forget when I got my first DAW. Over 10 years ago, really.
Oh, it's way over. I remember. Yeah, I mean, not to digress too much, but I remember having chats in 2005 about compression and shit, when I don't think either of us knew what the hell we were doing with it. I mean, I think today we know how to use it. Now it's a matter of, taste, right? But I don't think we knew what we were doing. But I remember having talks about compression in 2005 because we were both recording and not really achieving the results we wanted. That's for sure.
Yeah, being excited because we were able to actually start recording the whole band ourselves, and then you A-beat it to your favorite albums, and it's like, oh.
Just destroyed. When you go listen to that mix you've been working so hard on in the car, and it sounds like shit. and you're just so destroyed. You know what I mean? When you've been working on a mix so long, and it happened to me last night. I went home and I was listening to a mix I'd been working on all day, and I listened to it on my iPad. I'm like, where is the kick drum? I cannot hear the kick drum. So just that disappointment, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's hard to get the mix to translate on all devices, eh? And I get that even from clients sometimes. I'm like, well, what are you listening on? And one guy's like, oh, my iPad. It's like you said there, basically, right? And I'm like, oh, no wonder you can't hear the bass. So, but a good mix will sound good on an iPad, right?
I know. You listen to all those analog recordings from whenever, the 40s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. You hear the bass, you can hear the kick drum. If it was intended to be heard, you hear it. So I totally know what you're saying, that a great mix is a great mix, but shoot, I always have to go listen on an iPad or something.
No, it's good. I've been doing that a lot more too. I bounce between 2 sets of headphones, 3 sets of monitors now, and I'm constantly just checking back and forth between that and that as I'm kind of cruising along or whatever, right? And it's important. It's crazy that you got to do that, but even with the best monitors, you still got to reference back and forth, and then you get to know your monitors better by doing that too, I find, right? So that's something I've been doing a lot more. And this, like we were talking about a couple of weeks ago there, mono, checking back and forth in mono, right? Because that separation of left and right can cause phasing, but you don't hear the phasing until they're pushed together, and then all of a sudden things are disappearing in your mix. Like where did it go? And then you go back to stereo, you're like, oh, so then just these little tricks that help take the mix to the next level, right? And so while we're on this topic of mixing and rock and whatnot, have you been doing any metal work lately? Any guitar playing? You still obviously got your guitar chops in check?
Yeah, I'm still trying to keep those up, and the whole Metal Man. I was working on I was considering to be another release of a Metal Man release. Got halfway through that and sort of got busy doing other things. I may return to it, but in the meantime, that's I think this Turbo Killz. That's the new sort of, and there's guitars in it too, but there's no shredding and stuff. But I'm not giving up on it. It'd be really cool maybe to sort of revisit the fusion of shred guitar with house music, or like, I don't know, some type of crazy fusion. It worked well with the trap because it was halftime, so it was like heavy and groovy. House music, I don't know. I think like Latin or nylon string guitars and house music. It's always great. So Metal Man might come back from the dead. He might.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
Maybe Metal Man has morphed into Turbo Killz. I think that's what has happened. Maybe that's what it is. And maybe there'll be a Turbo Killz album that has some,
still showcasing those chops. I know.
Yeah, maybe. I'm just jamming here off your question, but yeah, possibly.
So I've been lucky enough to have you throw leads on several of my songs over the years, Phil, and that's always been an honor when I get a track back and you're just doing your amazing Metal Man thing, taking my songs to another level there. And I've also had the pleasure of singing on a few of your songs there, so I think it'd be kind of cool to share one of these songs with the listeners here. And one of my favorites was Dead Header, and that was a track we both really actually met in the middle on. We picked a beat per minute and a key, and actually we chose one drum library that we could both use from Addictive Drums, one of the metal libraries there. And then we each wrote 6 or 7 riffs around some of the grooves in that library, but blind from what the other guy was doing.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, right? Yes, I forgot that was the song we did that with. Yeah, we should definitely provide a link. And whose mix was that? Was that your mix?
Well, it was kind of both of ours, because you had, we both did an arrangement, and both our arrangements were kind of, and then you did a second arrangement after your first arrangement, and then you ended up sending me your Pro Tools sesh for that, and that's at the point where it was, I was totally loving it. I don't think you were completely 100% happy with it, but at that point I was like, oh no, this is it, man, you nailed it. because we had, I think, both 7 riffs each, and then I think 4 riffs of each of ours made it into the final arrangement. It was almost a little bit too much, but a strange and unique way of working, right? So that was quite challenging to put it all together. But then once you nailed that arrangement, you had sent me your Pro Tools sesh, which was sounding really great, and then I got my hands in there and just kind of basically picked up where you left off, which was great because I got to see how you were using certain effects on certain things and took it to the next level. And I think I did a few more vocal things after you had sent me your arrangement. But that was definitely a unique way of working. And another favorite one that I sang on that you wrote was Burning Soul. That was another one that just turned out killer.
That did turn out killer. And, I remember struggling with that mix and just couldn't get it right. So this mix that I guess you'll play for them or provide a link for them, anyone interested, is your mix, and like you killed it, man. It sounded great. And then your video, if you're pointing them to the YouTube, all your animation work, which is really cool, and all your videography and stuff and editing, very, very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, that was a fun little YouTube video there, working with all that free green screen stuff there. There was a trip trying to tell the story through all the characters. But yeah, I'll definitely post a link to Burning Soul so you can check out some of me and Phil's, not quite metal, it's more of a hard rock track, but definitely a little bit of metal injected in there.
And what about Deadheader? Is that available too? Do you have that posted anywhere online?
Yeah, you can check it out on SoundCloud. It's also available on Spotify, iTunes, and of course the UnderGunned Productions website there.
Well, maybe there could be a link to the SoundCloud version of that, because I want to hear it now.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely get some links posted up to both these tracks, and also post a link to your website so people can find you and check out more of the stuff you've been working on.
That would be great. That would be great.
The philbennett.com's going there?
Philip J Bennett music.com.
All right, so I'll definitely get a link to that set up. And on that note, I'm going to wrap up this podcast. So a huge thanks to all you listeners for checking out this episode. And if anyone has any suggestions for future episodes, or maybe wants to share your story on this podcast, please feel free to contact me at UnderGunnedProductions.com. And of course, a huge thanks to you, Phil, for agreeing to come on the show. Much appreciated.
Thanks a lot for having me, Jared. It's been a lot of fun.
No, thank you, Phil. The pleasure was mine. So let's wrap this up with a little Deadheader featuring yours truly on guitar, bass, and vocals, and Phil, a.k.a. Metal Man, a.k.a. Turbo Killz, on bass, guitar, and lead guitar. Just killing it.
You're listening to the UnderGunned Productions Podcast.